So we're going to go ahead and kick it off. I'd like to introduce our kickoff speakers. We have with us here today Greg Genesee, our head of U.S. Customer Experience and Enablement for DFS Climate FieldView, as well as Mark Harris, our Partner Engagement and Outreach Director for globally. And I actually work directly with Mark, and my name is Megan. I'm your U.S. Partnership Developer who's been working with the partners who have done a lot of great efforts to get ready for today, and they're really excited to share their cool tools with you. So Mark, I'm going to go ahead and turn the conversation over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Megan, and thank you everybody for joining. Welcome to the afternoon session, like Megan said, of FPX, so FieldView Partner Connect. And Greg and I will lead a bit into it. And Greg, also great to have you here. Maybe to get us started, anchoring more on FieldView itself, can you share your thoughts on FieldView and its relevance for its farmers today?
Sure, Mark, and good afternoon, everyone. You know, when Mark was telling me about this session, I was reflecting a little bit about FieldView and where we are today. FieldView has been around for about 10 years now. And throughout that time, we've developed into the #1 grower-chosen digital ag platform in the U.S. with about 35,000 users from coast to coast. And in terms of relevance of FieldView, I think it's never been as relevant as it is today. The amount of options, of choice, of technology that is available to our farmers is higher than it's ever been. And, FieldView really offers that ability for a farmer to record what he's using, analyze what is working on his farm in a specific field, and make a better decision that you're after to continue to, enhance the profitability that they have on their operation. Data is becoming more and more accessible and available. It's great to have the data, but it's what do you do with the data, right? Think about some of these Excel spreadsheets that in the work environment we have sometimes. There's 12,000 lines. I mean, that's great. We've got all this data. But if a tool like Excel did not enable you to have these formulas inside, to be able to average or sum or do a pivot table, what good would it do to you to have all this data? And that's really what we think about at FieldView is how do we power up that ability for a farmer to take his data and analyze that data and start getting some insights out of it.
That's awesome. That's already super helpful today. But where do you think you'll be headed in the future? Where do you want to take the business and what's your vision?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, maybe we can go to the next slide, Megan, but a lot of it is going to be continuing the course. We have a pretty healthy pipeline of new functionalities and features that we're going to bring to farmers in the next, it's about 12 to 18 months. And they're all about how do we help in that decision making? How do we help that grower analyze their data, make better informed decisions? And you see it here, but our vision is to become a daily tool essential to decision making. Sorry. Our strategy really relies on 3 pillars. The first one is how do we create value for that grower? And those are, again, enhancements to the tool, new functionalities and features that are going to be allowing that farmer to make the best use of their data and start getting some agronomic insights out of it. Another pillar of our strategy is really looking at that trusted advisor in the field that a farmer uses. A lot of time it's their seed dealer, it's their retailer. How do we empower them? How do we, more and more a farmer is going to have maybe a couple of these advisors. And it's never a good day for that farmer when he has 2 advisors that give a completely contradicting recommendation. So if we can help those trusted advisors also use that data and that data science to be able to make those recommendations and build that trust with the grower, it's always a positive outcome. And then last but not least, it's partnering with purpose. And that's a big element of why we're here this afternoon. But as we try to create this ecosystem, our partners are extremely important because they help feed more functionalities, they help feed more benefits for those farmer customers. But while we talk about partners, Mark, really our partners is your wheelhouse. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how do partners enhance that journey that a grower is having in FieldView?
Yeah, and you already hit the nail on the head, right? We want to partner with a purpose, and we want to build an ecosystem around FieldView that, if I think about it, is comprised of really a group of innovators that help our farmer customers solve problems that are not really our core focus or our core competence with FieldViews, but lie really in adjacent spaces that can, for that sake, complement our experience and enhance our experience. You see a couple of things even here on the visual, but if I think about it, one simple thing is really just taking the FieldView data, the data that you have in FieldView, and putting it to work, meaning making sure that we leverage it for insurance reporting, that we feed it into profitability tools, into grain management and marketing tools, or into farm accounting tools that are more specialized on those jobs that you guys have in front of you, or really taking a specialized job like in-season scouting, soil analysis, and taking those data layers back into FieldView to add to that MacBook and have a more robust decision-making basis than overall. So in a nutshell, really, all of these connections are really there to ideally make your life easier as a farmer, minimize spend on redundant data entry, but really maximize the value from a connected digital experience.
That's a really good way to lay it out. So simplicity for the user, and then for all of us, maybe our partners or FieldView, owning what is core to us, and then partnering with purpose for what is not core. So on those lines, Mark, as you and your team look at potential partners, what's your thought process? What's the process of evaluating partners?
Yeah, we really start, I think you can back up one slide still, but we really start every conversation with what's in the center of the picture or the slide here, really that farmer use case. So understanding what problem are we actually solving and how does it help you in your day-to-day operation? And then we partner very closely actually with your team to get that feedback directly from the farmer, directly from the field, to understand what's out there, what other tools are relevant, and where can we make life easier through something cryptic like an API connection that at the end of the day enables that seamless experience.
Yeah. So API connection, of course, means data moving from one platform to another. We take data privacy and the trust that our growers have in our platform and what we do for the privacy of their data very, very importantly. The growers' data is the growers' data. So can you help us understand also, how do you ensure that as we have partnerships, that we're also looking at a group that's maintaining that same integrity of the data that is so dear and near for us?
Yeah, very clear that our data privacy principles are near and dear to our heart, and we with that put the farmer customer in the driver's seat, and part of that is third-party sharing. So any sharing relationship with a third-party application really requires farmer permission. That's that opt-in that you need to do in order to have anything flow. So we do not share any of our customer data really with third parties without prior consent. And we're continuing to invest in making that easier. Often it's a bit of a clunky experience, and we're really right now doubling down on bringing that all together in one place so that it, first of all, it's easy to just see what else is out there. And then second of all, I can quite easily navigate, hey, with whom did I share and where do I maybe want to opt in and activate some of these integrations where I think, hey, this is interesting. This is helping me get something done on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mark. I think that was important for our audience to hear. I mean, data privacy is so important for us. And again, I want to repeat it. The grower's data is the grower's data. And so for you to explain to us how, we're making sure that no farmer data is going to be shared with any third party unless that farmer decides, I want to create this relationship with this partner. And it's super exciting to hear that you're putting together something that's going to be new for our users, a page where they can really go ahead and manage what partnerships they have, turn them on, turn them off, really better understand. Because sometimes I've shared, but I don't remember whose I shared with. So this is going to be a great improvement. So much appreciated. And before we hand it back to Megan to explain to us how I introduce the sessions, I really want to thank all of our audience for joining today. And also a very special thank you to all our partners who have put a lot of work and energy in putting this together. And I'm sure you'll see the benefit of getting this group together and really taking the time to discuss and talk about this ecosystem that FieldView enables and that our partners also enable, which is key for us in our vision, again, of really becoming this daily tool essential for farmer decision making. So thank you, and Megan, back to you.
Thank you both. Wonderful introduction. Really appreciate your insights there. Okay, now before we move into our breakouts, what we'd like to do is have our group leaders introduce each of the partners, and then we'll move over there. Now, when we go into it, well, we'll just start with the introductions, and I'll get to the other details first. So, without further ado, hey, Scott, will you tell us about ForGround by Bayer? What do they have going on?
Yeah, most definitely. Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for attending this session here today. So in the ForGround by Bayer breakout, I'm super excited to have Matt Reinhardt with us. Matt is the Carbon Product Marketing Manager for ForGround by Bayer. And if you don't know about ForGround by Bayer, it is a new farmer-first digital platform that supports growers considering, adopting, and expanding regenerative agriculture practices. Joining ForGround unlocks access to expert agronomic support, resources, and exclusive discounts for you. Plus, you'll have opportunities to earn income through programs that incentivize the implementation of new practices like no-till, strip-till, or cover crops, and even enabling new functionality and opportunities like the Bayer Carbon program. I also do want to make a shout out for the ForGround team for sponsoring FieldView Partner Connect in 2023. As you guys will see as we go throughout the sessions, there'll be a 30-second survey at the end. And if you do enter that, you have a chance to win a FieldView Drive sponsored by the ForGround group. So just wanted to say thank you to the team there. That's an awesome opportunity for those that are attending here this afternoon.
Thanks, Scott. I'm going to go ahead and take our next group with MyAgData. So we have three awesome presenters from MyAgData. We have Don Bierman, the CEO, Michelle Tressel, the Chief Revenue Officer, as well as Catherine Clower, or Kat, as I've come to know her, the Client Engagement Specialist. We've done a lot of stuff with MyAgData because they are awesome. And I want to tell you a little bit about what it is that they do. So MyAgData was actually founded in 2012 in Effingham, Illinois, close to my home. And it's designed with the field at its core. Everything connects to the field, especially when you connect with Climate FieldView. They're saving farmers time and money and improving the quality of the data they collect. The MyAgData software collects, translates, organizes, and delivers field data from FieldView for both USDA and crop insurance acreage reports. Insurance coverage and subsidies are based on actual planted acres, which are 4.7 to 6.9% less than FSA acres. So really truing up those acres there. It's easy. MyAgData guides you through the entire process to ensure all information is collected. No more mistakes. MyAgData eliminates human error, and that can come when the acres on a field are manually entered. Not that any of you would make mistakes, of course, but imagine reporting acreage with no errors. A beautiful future, right? Quick, accurate production reporting means simplified production reports with a more accurate APH. Wouldn't we all love that? Okay, next partner is going to be RCIS, and I believe, Andy, is that you taking that group? All right, let's hear about them.
Yep. So I'm going to be over at the Rural Community Insurance Services breakout with RCIS. In that we have Cameron and Nick, and RCIS offers insurance protection in all 50 states through a national network of over 3,700 licensed agents. So they have a lot of people out there to help service their customers out in the countryside. They have a wide range of private product coverages, including a diverse selection of named peril options, supplemental and standalone insurance products, as well as federal crop insurance plans through the USDA's Risk Management Agency. So together with RCIS agents, they help protect America's farmers and ranchers. So we'll be over in that breakout, Megan.
Nice. What a great use case. We love that. And then we have our traction added folks. They're actually twins, as you can tell. But Mark, will you tell us about Traction Ag?
Yeah, and as you can see, I'm there with Brian and Brian. Brian is the marketing director and one of the co-founders of Traction. Brian Stark, that is, and Brian Watkins is actually a user, so farmer, and he's also the CEO of Cropzilla, so another ag tech tool out there. And they'll tell us all about Traction, which is a farm management solution uniquely built for the cloud, integrating different actual accounting numbers with field operations, which then results in real-time financial analysis for really timely and informed decision-making. Traction really delivers the most extensive suite of farm-specific accounting capabilities in a cloud application, and it allows users to automatically and easily maintain inventory balances for crops and supplies, track cost of production and field level profitability, and therewith providing crucial insights and saving valuable time on the farm. The company overall is majority employee and farmer business owned, and leverage integration with FieldView to automate and ease the collection of their field activities.
Sounds like they got a lot of cool stuff going on. Hey, Wyatt, you want to bring us home with VariMax?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wyatt Jones. I'm the FieldView brand manager. And in my breakout session, we have Dr. Chad Gossi, who is the founder and chief research officer of VariMax, who's going to walk us through an informational session and then some good case studies about VariMax. So VariMax is a cloud-based solution that makes nitrogen and irrigation recommendations easier for agronomists and farmers. Their tools were developed at a field level and provide straightforward information to end users. So come on over if you want to check out VariMax.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll actually start with those key takeaways so we can get going through there and get to our panel session. And Chad, you're already doing exactly what you need to do for the panel session. So just when we get ready to start, we'll start asking questions and dive into the juicy stuff here. But before we do, hey, Scott, I was wondering if you could kick us off with what do you guys talk about in our ForGround group?
Yeah, thanks, Megan, and thanks to the attendees for the ForGround by Bayer group. I think we had awesome conversation both in the presentation by Matt, but also in the questions that folks asked during the Q&A session. So a few big key takeaways for ForGround by Bayer. One of the biggest ones is that if you're interested in learning more about regenerative ag practices, you've heard about carbon programs, what's the buzz, and want to know more, membership to ForGround by Bayer is free, and it takes less than 60 seconds to enroll if you do have a current FieldView account. The benefits that you get through ForGround by Bayer can be accessed even if you're not currently eligible for a carbon program. So there's more to the ForGround platform than just specifically carbon. And one of the biggest ones that we talked about was being a member in ForGround helps to keep you up to date on all new revenue opportunities. So as we know, carbon is a changing space. Regenerative ag is changing every day. If you're a member in ForGround, you'll get to be the first to know about a lot of the new exciting things that are coming to the market. One of the other big ones when we talk about ForGround by Bayer is the Bayer Carbon Program being a part under that umbrella, and that it's one of the most simple, flexible, and certain programs that's out there on the market today. And it's very simple to enroll via the ForGround platform. We actually went through the demo to see how do I link my fields from FieldView to my ForGround account and ultimately sign up for a carbon program with Bayer. The last one then is that the future boasts a huge pipeline of new carbon programs, new grower benefits, resources that are going to offer more flexibility and even higher payments from multiple companies. One of the coolest things Matt showed was actually the change in carbon payments from 2019 to 2023 is actually doubled. So being a big part of the Bayer Carbon Program, as those payments go up, the program's also being flexible based on the market needs. So I thought that was really unique to see, and I think just stay tuned by joining ForGround by Bayer here today.
Thank you, Scott. I'm going to take MyAgData next. We had a wonderful conversation. It's a really great group. So we talked about quite a few different things, but some of the key takeaways that we want to get into is the key benefits that you can really reap when you connect with MyAgData. So you're going to save money. Who doesn't love that? So you're using that machine data to report those actual planted acres to lower your crop insurance costs. So the annual savings could be roughly on a 1,500 acre farm, about $3,000, which is one all-inclusive ticket to Jamaica. If you have more acres, you could have two and get yourself a full vacation there. And also time is valuable, right? So you're going to be saving time. And we had discussions about growers really reflecting on, hey, I need to consider my own time and what it's worth. Apparently, manual reporting is a very time-consuming process. I fortunately have not had to do it, but I can only imagine. So again, looking at that 1,500 acre grower, they can reduce that reporting time from roughly 12 hours down to 1 hour, which is insane. Truly, that's insane. And that 12 hours, Michelle, I think was for one report. So if you have multiple reports, I mean, you could be there for days and weeks, right? And lastly, reducing that risk, right? I know farmers love to gamble and try new things sometimes, but at the end of the day, they want to mitigate as many risks as possible. And so with one report, your actual acres going electronically, both to that FSA and to the crop insurance reporting. So you've got your data collected, you're sending it automatically, you're saving time, and you are saving money as well. Alrighty, RCIS, what'd you guys learn?
Oh, go back one. There you go, Megan. Yep. So we had a great conversation, and Nick and Cameron did a great job of walking us through, honestly, some really good tactical examples of ways that it's bringing value back to the farmer and back to the grower. But the first thing is right there first. It's easy to connect, right? And the compatibility with FieldView as well as other partners makes it easier than ever for reporting with precision agriculture. I mean, it was benefiting growers from McLean County of Illinois, the biggest row crop county in the United States, all the way out to irrigation fields out in Delaware or in Kansas, I'm sure, in the Pacific Northwest. So the compatibility has never been better, and it's impacting growers directly. And we use the analogy of a truck payment, right? Instead of a trip to Jamaica, we're thinking about our F-150s or our Silverados, but the savings are real whenever you start to report on the actual acres that you're farming. And for me, one of the big takeaways that we were talking about is saving time. And Megan, you talked about it in the last slide, but I know the pains that my dad has whenever he goes to the FSA office to do reporting, and I hear about him grumble when he has to get in the truck to drive 5 minutes to the FSA office. But having all that information in an easy place to access and in a smooth view makes that process go by much more efficiently. So that's what we learned about.
Anything to keep dad happy, right?
That's right. I think now we pass it over to Mark.
Yeah, I'll take it. And we had a great session with Brian and Brian at Traction, running us through the accounting suite, but also other parts of the Traction tool. And we really started with how easy it is to reconcile all of the field records coming in from FieldView, manually setting them up, but really getting all of your data from your FieldView account in that specific case, feed into your accounting system, and then run analysis on top of that, right? So profit center analysis for fields and crops, really drilling different ways, and then not even getting into inventory tracking. So you can always have an up-to-date view of your inventory and all harvested crops and all of the inputs you've purchased. So a really insightful session. And I think the key highlight for me is just how easy it is, right? On the one hand, getting everything in, but then also navigating through the information and putting it to work. Traction's a really great tool when it comes to that.
Awesome. And Wyatt, bring us home.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. So Dr. Chad Gotze, thank you again for the time walking us through VariMax. And Dr. Gotze has an incredible background in this space and is really an expert. So it was great to hear from him firsthand and to see some examples. He walked us through several different scenarios where VariMax can add value on the farm. And a couple key things: VariMax InCheck provides nitrogen recommendations through the season in corn and wheat, and then responding to the weather and yield capacity during the season to optimize nitrogen applications. VariMax InCheck fertilizer recommendations can be obtained as little as 30 minutes from start to finish. And then really one last key takeaway was that the InCheck can be used to verify late season N needs in corn and wheat. And so what I found was really neat was that this company and VariMax in and of itself is built from the field, and they've got a lot of folks in the field that are helping make decisions up and down the chain, and they're driving solutions for our farmers.
Awesome. Hey, thanks. Great job today, group leaders. Really appreciate the help. I didn't make you stand out in a hot field for this one. We got to do it from the comfort of our air conditioning, but I really appreciate all the help. Next. So Greg, like I said, talk to me about this. What challenges do ag tech companies face today when it really comes to, I have an idea, I want to create it, and now I have to support this new technology? What difficulties are out there?
There's more than one challenge, but I would say right now, the one challenge that I would rank right at the top is really around the cost that it represents to bring a new solution to the market. And you think about costs, and it's a lot about people costs. People costs have just been going up tremendously in the last couple of years and through COVID. And it's also the availability of those people. And it goes from our engineers and our product developers all the way. If you look at FieldView, we also have all of our field staffs. We often get some very positive feedback on our support group. And our support group is all in-house. But those costs are also going up every year. And so if I think about today, some of the challenges to continue to bring that innovation, that creativity, it's really how do you manage to have a value proposition that can get you to a point where you reach critical mass. I started the call by explaining that we've reached now about 35,000 users coast to coast. And I think that really helps then to snowball and to always continue to look at how do we add resources and how do we continue to bring resources to this space. We sit in a really nice seat here with Papa Bayer putting a roof over our heads, but Bayer is extremely committed to this digital ag space and has a good amount of resourcing that they put around digital every year. And so I know it's a lot of companies are asking themselves. This is a field that has been really mushrooming with a lot of new companies, and it's always the same in these industries. You have this mushrooming, and then at some point, people ask themselves, "Is this where I want to spend my money?" And then you start seeing some companies either start to integrate or dropping off the radar screen. It's not all companies that exist today will continue to exist in 3 years, but it's through the value proposition and the uniqueness of the solution. And I think today I was able to pop in and out of several of these breakouts with the partners. And that common thread that I'm hearing is that uniqueness of the product, how it's really helping that farmer achieve an important job on his or her operation. And that is that recipe of success in my mind to continue bringing that innovation.
Great answer. Would anybody else like to add about what challenges you're facing with new ideas and supporting technology? It's easy peasy everywhere else. They must have the secret funds, the secret sources. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for that answer, Greg. I kind of want to build off this a little bit with something similar but different. So when we talk about challenges, one thing that I have faced being very hands-on with the grower experience is really getting on farm and making sure the grower is comfortable, right? Recording their data, making sure it's correct, doing calibration, something that nobody really likes to stop and do because it takes time. So I actually want to ask Nick and Cameron over at RCIS. It looks like you have a calibration form within your system. Why is calibration important, and why is that form so important at RCIS?
I think the biggest thing for us is just making sure the growers have calibrated data, because RMA requires that data to be calibrated. At RCIS, we're a very boots on the ground approach. We want to educate the grower, make sure they understand how to use that technology and the benefits from them. So we understand they're not the expert all the time in calibration, but we can help them be able to utilize that data and make it good. Because the old garbage in, garbage out philosophy, right? We need to make sure that's the garbage. We don't have garbage. We actually have good data we can utilize, and we get that calibrated to what RMA wants, which for most people who didn't attend that session, RMA needs to have a calibration done to under 3% in order to utilize their data for crop insurance for production reporting.
Great answer. And that is something we talk about at FieldView all the time. The effort that you put in typically will be what you get out of your data. And that's no shade, right? Everybody starts somewhere. But what we're finding is growers tend to be more engaged when they're connected with different platforms, and they're finding more value in taking that time to enter their data correctly because they're getting more out of it. So it's kind of that downstream effect. You take that time at the field level and you're going to reap the benefits, hopefully downstream. Now, let's talk a little bit about regenerative ag. That's a fun conversation. Matt, as you can probably tell, I'm going to send this question over to you, but how do platforms like FieldView support our efforts in regenerative ag?
So they are absolutely essential. We are fortunate being a part of Greater Bayer to have that partnership with FieldView, really being side by side. But when it comes to measuring the amount of carbon that we're pulling down out of the atmosphere, transforming into organic matter, it's all data that's around it. So if you take a look at what is actually a carbon credit, it's data. It's data with the timestamp, I guess, if you will, that, hey, this farmer implemented cover crops in this geospatial location. And then when we're pairing that with soil samples that show from year to year, speaking of the timestamp, that those levels of organic matter in the soil have been built from one year to the next. It's all data, and that's ultimately what's being packaged up. So when you take a look, not only just at generating carbon offsets and carbon insets, but actually looking back at, wow, did these regenerative practices actually make a difference on my farm and my ROI from a yield perspective? Cover cropping, no-tilling. It's not just popular just because you can join a carbon program. It's pretty popular now for a whole host of other reasons, and ultimately it's things like improving your water infiltration and your water holding capacity in your soil. I just think about the drought that a lot of places are still in and managing. Those fields that have a pretty robust layer of mulch, of crop residue sitting on the surface, that corn might not be as twisted up as bad as fields that have been conventionally tilled and allowed that moisture to evaporate in a much, much quicker time frame. So it might have allowed you to get into the field a little bit quicker, but it's just one of those things where when we look at FieldView and what that can do for us with some of the new features that Data Manager provides around things like tillage and one that they've always had, cover crop planting, being able to take a look at how those field region reports and just seeing how those areas that had a cover crop or maybe had that crop residue over it, or that didn't receive tillage, how those performed in the yield at the end of the day with that harvest data layer. Looking at all that in comparison can just give you that peace of mind or that affirmation on a year after year basis that, yeah, you made the right choice switching to these practices and moving forward in that way. So thanks for the question, Megan.
Absolutely. Being able to record and share that information, should they choose, is going to be absolutely crucial in a lot of ways, right? To participate and to be able to track. And at the end of the line, when we have claims on things, to be able to go backwards, right? And trace all the way and say, hey, this is what we did. This is how we did it. This is when we did it. And oh, by the way, it was a lot easier for me to submit it because I was able to do it digitally and accurately real time. Game changing. Don and Kat, we were talking in our group, right, about pinnacle moments in the industry when we are going to look back and say, hey, that was a moment something changed, and it changed forever for us and hopefully for the better. And so I want to send this over to you two to answer. When we think about MyAgData, when we think about the industry and technology, what problem are we really trying to solve for the farmer? You're on mute, Don. There you go.
I'm sorry. It seems to me that and we've been involved with production ag data for a very long time, and there's been, I'll say, blinders. Folks have had blinders on because they've been their view of how they could use information and technology has been limited in a lot of cases just to input use management or other sort of reporting functions, maybe for landlords or lenders or somebody that needs to know what's going on the farm, and having that data collected from a machine is a convenient way to do it. But what I think with what's happening in the regenerative ag and environmental asset management that we're calling it now, and what we bring to the marketplace now in electronic acreage reporting is represents a whole new way of benefiting from investments in this technology the producers have made. And I think it's challenging them to think about how they do what they do in the farm every day, but they look at it differently now because they have this other set of expectations or pathways that they can go down that gives them alternatives and flexibility to do things differently and hopefully in a more profitable and sustainable way. And the other thing I think that's, it's this doesn't show up on our balance sheet anywhere, I'll tell you, but it's been a long struggle. It's been a happy struggle working with the USDA to help them understand that farmers really farm differently than the way you think they do. And it would be wonderful if you could embrace what agriculture's done for the last 20 years and incorporate that into your systems and knock on wood, it's finally happening. So I think, to your point, people will look back at this and say, we lived this life and did things this other way, and boy, we're glad we don't have to do that anymore. So I think that also applies to these other new alternatives, I guess I'd say, or new ways of managing your crops and how you manage your rotation. What are you going to plant next year? And you're going to take things into account now that you've never taken into account before, like some access to some of these programs and different ways of considering how you produce a crop. And we're talking about row crop production here. So that's the thing. I think that it's not just limited to what we do, but I think we're really challenging the industry, in technology in general, to be better, to be simpler, to be more effective, because farmers are going to want to use this data for other things than what they've used it before. So I think that's going to be a key takeaway too as we look forward here, going in the future.
I would add to that in terms of those transitioning moments. We work in this industry. We know how our farmer customers farm their land, but there's never been such a big disconnect between our industry and public opinion and people who live afar from our industry. You think about supply chains getting more complicated. You think about consumers wanting to know more and more about traceability, origin of their food and the production. It's not going to be we're not going to be able to manage it outside of digital. Digital is really going to help link those practices that our farmers have been doing for a while, but being able to showcase how things have evolved in farming versus what the public opinion believes farming is about, and reconcile, hopefully, those two worlds going forward. And again, I think digital is a huge piece of it because of the global supply and how things work by region. Now we have FieldView in Europe also, and when we look at all the regulatory limitations that are trying to be imposed on agriculture, we also see FieldView and other digital tools as key tools to be able to have that record keeping, to show what is happening on the farm, what products are being used, what practices are being done, and how maybe regenerative agriculture, maybe sustainability, but that is a everyday component of what a farmer thinks about.
I like where this conversation is going, and I want to keep it going that way. So Dr. Chad Godsey, we're talking about the future over here. And so I want to hear your opinion. Let's talk about nitrogen management, a very important piece of agriculture, which also has a lot of eyes on it too. So what do you see changing over the next 5 years? And really, how does VariMax fit into that whole shift?
Yeah, thanks, Megan. I think I think we're just on the verge of seeing big changes, and some of them probably maybe not from where we want them to start, but from a necessity from, environmental situations where we have a lot of places in Nebraska, I know Iowa, where we, have high nitrates in the groundwater. So when we think about the sustainability aspect, and we've already, Matt Matthew commented on that, and you know, the sustainability, carbon sequestration. I think that from the nitrogen aspect and the environmental impact of that is, you know, potentially even more important, that we identify those areas or regions maybe or areas in the field that, you know, get by with less nitrogen in a year instead of front loading things. So I think, I guess when I step back and look at it, I think, you know, nitrogen is going to become, it already is important, don't get me wrong, but from an environmental standpoint, you know, more eyes are going to start looking at it, as far as application amounts, timings, and things like that. And we see, you know, further east in the U.S., we already see those things. I think Western Corn Belt has been a little bit behind as far as, you know, those regulations that we've seen further east. So I think it's just the intensive management is going to be a must when it comes to nitrogen. And I guess to echo what a lot of others have said about the record keeping aspect, you know, the as applied nitrogen maps, things like that. We think about yield data as being a must, you know, for insurance reporting, but, you know, documentation of where and when that nitrogen was applied is going to be a critical piece, and how you determine to apply the right amount. So.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I want to keep on the same vein. We have time for just a couple more questions. And so we're talking about the future. We're talking about shifts. And earlier, even, you know, in some of our other groups, we're getting into this conversation as well. Brian, we just learned about what it could look like in the future for nitrogen. What do you think about accounting? Talk about your space over at Traction. What shifts do you see?
Yeah, so I'll just start with one of Mark's comments at the end of my presentation. He said, "Boy, Brian, you did a great job of making accounting look exciting and fun." And so I think if you visit any farm, you start having that conversation with farm finances and farm accounting, you can just kind of see that farmer tense up and get, you know, anxious. And it's just one of those things that, you know, most farmers don't like to do, though it's one of the most important things you can do on a farm is do a good job of your record keeping, your accounting. And so I think, well, I know we are making headway to make it easier for farmers to get that information quicker and better into our platform. And so when I think of the future, I get pretty excited about it. I think it's going to get really exciting because companies like us are having conversations with like key ag retailers, for example. And those ag retailers, as you know, they have their own cloud-based accounting system. And so if you think about that, if I go to buy some inputs from that ag retailer, today I have to manually do everything in my accounting system, right? I got to manually punch in the accounts payable and manage that information from start to end. But there's much easier ways of doing this. And these companies have APIs, just like Climate FieldView. So I see the future very exciting in terms of the accounting. I see it being much easier than what it is today. I think these companies are willing to work with, like us, to be able to get those accounts payables or accounts receivables, whether it's scale tickets, wherever it might be, anything digital. You know, I think it's coming to the point where the stuff is coming together finally because we are all on the cloud and we're all working together in a way to try to get all the stuff into one system so you can make better decisions from it. So I really feel accounting isn't always fun to do, but I think it's going to become even easier in the future. So
we'd have to ask Michelle Tressel about that. She's the finance guru. She might disagree that accounting is fun, but I can agree with you. I don't like numbers. So however we can make it easy, that's the best way. Neil posted something in the chat here. And so this may be something we take as a note for us at FieldView, but I do want to at least bring up the discussion here. So in the morning, it looks like they got some confirmation that data flow in and out of FieldView would be more transparent, which You know, we're working to build an interface here in the partnership group where growers can really go in and put themselves in the driver's seat. Not only that, be able to explore other opportunities and other options to connect and to do more with their data. So more to come on that in the future. But just as an example, growers are looking for the ability to keep that grid soil sampling in FieldView account and possibly use that with partners to create their prescriptions, really creating that ecosystem full digitally connected experience. Can't agree more. They've also invested in some of their sampling for their carbon inventory. A lot of great work that they're working through here. The question is, and I don't know if I fully understand this, so I apologize, Neil, if I get this wrong. But they're looking to see, are these samples in a blockchain to help us assure their historic quality? So I guess, are we keeping them safe? Are they in a way that we can look back historically and make sure that they are accurate? And Matt, maybe you might know a little bit about that space and how we intend to store that information and reporting.
Yeah, by and large, Neil, if we're generating a carbon offset, once that offset had been sold to a third party, they're really the owners of that offset, and thereby just taking a look at like thinking about Nori, for example, who utilizes the blockchain to store all of their carbon information on. It might not be, I believe, in a future where it should be really public information, you know, as far as a public ledger. So there's no sort of wonky funny business that can go on with carbon accounting, if you will. But when looking at that, it's not really, I guess none of that would be stored within FieldView, if that makes sense. It's really just your farm practice data, kind of the proof that you farmed your land in a certain way, you know. But none of the actual soil organic carbon content, none of that data per our carbon program is actually stored within FieldView. So hope that answers your question there.
Well, and if it doesn't, Neil will let us know, and we'll definitely follow up with him and see. But that was a great answer. Thank you, Matt. I put you in the hot seat on that one. Okay, so Greg, I'm going to leave you with this. This will be our last question. Everybody else, feel free to chime in, but I'm going to put you in the hot seat one more time. So let's talk about this. As leaders in the digital space, as we say at FieldView, what do you think our responsibility is to the industry when it comes to collaboration with our partners?
Yeah, I know, that's a great question, Megan. And, you know, so I think about it, I see it more as a desire than a responsibility. You know, not every company out there has such an open partnership strategy. Not everybody pulls a group like this together and creates an event where partners can showcase what they're doing to the users. In my mind, it's a desire from us to create this ecosystem. And you know, for those of you who have been in some of these sessions, every company is still having to provide a differentiated solution to their grower, provide a value proposition, provide some uniqueness in their solution. What we're looking at is, how do we make it even more simple for a farmer to be able to take advantage of all these value propositions and products that companies are offering? And, you know, we're taking the data, which is very particular. It's that grower's data, but it doesn't belong to us any more than it belongs to anybody on this call as far as partners, and enabling farmers to share it to get that extra value add from other sources. So I think it's, again, for us, it's part of that ecosystem that we want to create. It's part of that benefit to a farmer also that wants to enroll into FieldView, is that not only do they get the great tools that FieldView has to offer, but then it also unlocks that opportunity to partner and get some added benefits from other companies by using their data. So that's where I think, again, our vision being that daily tool essential to farmer decision making, it's not going to come only from what's inside the walls of FieldView. It's really going to come from that platform and everything it has to offer.